All right, all right. Hope everybody had a good Easter Sunday. I know I did. Let's get this party started. Class is in session today. It's going to be a little classy, classroomy, whatever the word is. A little academic. Bear with me. What's going on with the Pope? Ruh-roh. What? Whoa, hold on a second. I'm sorry, I've been busy with my family. He is, in fact, passed away. Yeah. Yeah, folks, he's gone. Oh, sorry, I've been bad now. I've been busy. Not that he was my favorite pope, and honestly, he would not have been my grandmother's favorite pope. She was in love with Pope John Paul II. Not that way. She loved him. Thought he was a great pope. Oh, no, I'm always plugged in. That's the problem. I'm not plugged in. I'm locked in. Locking in. So, I am not happy that he's gone, but I certainly won't miss him as a pope, is the general consensus from my messages I just started looking at. That is what I see people generally saying, Catholics that I know. Because, of course, I am not a Catholic. My grandmother was, of course, my whole family was raised Roman Catholic. My mother was like my bio mom. We call her the incubator. My actual mother has passed away. But she was raised Roman Catholic too. But yeah, I was baptized Greek Orthodox in some weird thing, and then I got baptized later in the Roman Catholic Church. But I was raised Roman Catholic. I am not Roman Catholic now. I am a Protestant now. But here we are. Pope Francis, obviously, he did pass away about looks like 7 hours ago. On Easter Sunday? No, that would not have still been Easter Sunday. I'll have to check and see when exactly it was, of course, because their time is ahead of us. UTC is 0 UTC. We're -4. That's about Eastern Standard Time. We're -4 Eastern Daylight Time. That's about 8 p.m. Eastern Central Time. Eastern Standard Time is when UTC reset is. So I'd have to go look and see exactly. But other than that, if you are Catholic and you're mourning Pope Francis, then I'm sorry. I remember when we did lose Pope John Paul II. It was absolutely devastating. My grandmother loved him. Everybody loved Pope John Paul II. I was fortunate enough to actually hold his personal prayer beads, which were given to John O'Shea. And he has them in Texas right now, in fact. And they're beautiful. And I actually felt them. Like, you're holding something that is historic, but I'm telling you, folks, that these prayer beads felt special. They did. And they're not what you would expect from the man who is essentially the king of a church, and lives a very good quality life. has access to really whatever he wants. And these were very modest but very pretty beads. I think John O'Shea has actually brought them on the show before. I don't know if you guys have watched that episode, but I'm fairly certain I've held them in person. Very cool. Um, but this Pope outside of the United States and in certain areas around the world, but outside of the United States was not a very popular Pope. Okay, he just wasn't compared to like a Pope John Paul II. The Catholic Church has had a string of problems with the Pope. These last couple of picks, Benedict, of course, had his own issues, being accused of covering up the scandals of the church, which, of course, I'm talking about sexual assault on a mass scale, which had been going on a long time. He just got what's the word? The unfortunate. Sometimes it's just bad to be the man at a certain time. And I'm not sure he could have done anything right. Anyway, it was a short-lived papacy, and now we have another short-lived papacy, whatever. Right? Yeah. Then we have another short-lived one. No pun intended. Right. So even though I know a lot of people who did not like his views, he was a radical. Let's get real. For those who don't know the history, his history from Argentina on, he is a socialist or was a left winger of the highest order. He advocated for policies that destroyed his country. And then as Pope, he advocated for policies that are anti Catholic. I mean, it's just true. All right. You can't just change doctrine because you think you're progressive. You just can't do that. You are a man. I know you get maybe all, day in and day out. You start to think of yourself as actually like God's appointed. You're not. You're a man. There was a God appointed man before. We just celebrated his resurrection yesterday. So it is what it is. I hope you all had a wonderful Easter regardless. I myself had a fantastic Easter. However, there was one main problem. My family has a ritual. We wake up, we do the Easter bunny thing, all right, after coloring eggs the night before, or we'll do it Friday night sometimes. But we get up, we do our thing, our family thing, and then we go to church. We spend time in church. I wish we would have went to the earlier service, however, because it's just tough with kids. But I wish we would have, because apparently it was outside and there was an Easter egg hunt, which we did miss out on. But we do our own. We went. It was a wonderful service. We said hello to really good people. I'm starting to very much feel at home at this church. It's a very good church. You guys know I've been like struggling to find a new church. I really do like this church. And then we go after church to, typically it would have been Publix, and we go to Publix and I get my wife Lily's, same thing every year, and I get the lamb fresh that day. Well, now that we're not in Florida, it is not easy to find a Publix. There is one Publix in the area, and it just so happens to be right near our church. So we stop at the Publix to get the lamb, and there is no Publix open. I cannot remember the last time a Publix was closed on a holiday, but it was. It's again, it's not the biggest Publix you'll run into because it's not Florida. It's not their home base. So I'm like, all right, let's head to Teeter. And Harris did not have it. So we did not get lamb, which is why you didn't see it up on locals. I got to be honest with you, I was a little devastated. But we had such a good day with the family and the neighborhood because my neighbors, their daughter moved in. She has a bunch of kids and little ones, Roro's age. They lived their best life yesterday between both the houses, right? And we have the pools, so it's not ready yet, but we're gonna get the pool ready, and they're gonna have a blast. But they were living their best lives, running around, finding Easter eggs, playing on their scooters. We live in a cul-de-sac, so it's very protected. It's nice. It's very nice. And we had not a huge number of guests, but that's what's cool about sometimes having a neighborhood. That's really awesome. And what's also cool is that we are Italian. And then, of course, Laura is part Puerto Rican, but we have our cultures and our traditions. My neighbor is Black. They have their cultures and their traditions. The neighbor on the other side, and my wife and the husbands, we're all friends. And on the other side, there are two types of Latin American. And what does that mean? We all have different cultures, traditions, and food, right? This what was it? A tres leche cake? Wow. So good. So we have cannolis. They have this like cream cake, right? My neighbor in between is a baker and she makes amazing stuff. But her macarons are incredible. And she also makes my favorite cookie in the world, and she makes my favorite cookie in the world. So, like, when I had her cookie, it was the best cookie I have ever eaten. And it is an Italian. Oh, come on, Rich. I always draw a blank on this thing. Italian. Oh, somebody please help me out. They're like, these it's not a wafer, it's a cookie, but it's like a stick. Come on, guys. Oh my God, how am I forgetting this? This is driving me nuts. Somebody help me out. Come on. Locals, somebody. There's got to be somebody in Italian in locals or YouTube. Starts with a B. Whoa. It's going to pop in my head in a second, but it's biscotti, Debbie. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. She makes these Italian biscotti cookies, and I think they're peanut butter biscotti cookies. I don't know, but they're Italian biscotti cookies. They are telling you the best cookie I have ever had in my life. They are that good, and the whole family loves them. So good. So we just had a really good time. It was just a very, very nice time. We started the morning before church when we were doing our family stuff, watching service in Jerusalem, of course, at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which we thought was beautiful. Cardinal Dolan, you did an incredible job. Absolutely incredible job. It was a wonderful day, and I hope you guys also had a very, very wonderful and blessed day. Okay, so let's get on with it. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. This is your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them. Share them far and wide, of course. The links to our sponsors and the very important public polling project that is now April 21st are also below. Support it and share it if you can. All right. By the way, that represents 2 surveys. So we're actually rather close. We're not that far off. It just looks like we're far off because we didn't make the mark on the last one. And we just did it. So it's compounding. All right. All right. So this is going to be a little bit academic today because we've talked about this before. Like, what is the technical name for what is going on here? But it keeps coming up. And I'm seeing people, somebody else just texted me, good riddance. Oh Lord. I would do the Trinity, but I'm not Catholic anymore. I almost went to, but you see, he was not a popular pope. He just wasn't. Polls be darned, right? Who's doing it? Reuters, okay? Ipsos, right? We've asked people in very important states about the pope, and they don't like him. South Carolina has a lot of Catholics. North Carolina has a lot of Catholics. Pennsylvania has a lot of Catholics. New Jersey has a lot of Catholics. They don't like the direction that the Catholic Church was going. They didn't like Pope Francis at all. So, I mean, I don't mean to be a little bit of a prick here, but that's where we're at. All right, back to a point at hand. That message distracted me. We have spoken about this phenomenon before, but is a very real phenomenon. And I just want to preface it by saying, years ago when I was coming up, there was a book that was making its way around all the pollsters, the big shots, and of course, they're all left wing. And it was called The Republican Mind. And it was a book that just took the dirtiest, most, if there was a word unacademic, I would say that this book fits the profile. But it was making its way around all these pollsters that you know now. And it would, and then stupid academics, like stupid, like communists who teach American National Government 101. Okay. And it was a shot at people they didn't understand. And when I read the book, I thought to myself, this isn't legitimate research. Number one, it's just not. Number two, it's somebody's way of trying to understand other people that they don't understand. And out of frustration, insulting them. Sometimes, to tell the truth, there's no way but to insult people. And it's like, this is our world. Statistics meet social science. We deal in generalities, and we're trying to speak for a group or speak about a group, learn about a group. And while there are always outliers, while there are always people who don't meet the prereqs for the group they may be in, they don't have those characteristics. For the most part, we are in the business of generalization, which a lot of people find to be offensive. And that's just tough crap. I mean, at the end of the day, that is the job. But that's not what this was. This was somebody not understanding, thinking they understand because of the flaws themselves that they have. So it's not an earnest attempt. It's really an exercise in hubris, right? And a bit of narcissism. That mentality has now, because things have changed over the years since that book was published. Things have changed now. The world's upside down. What's once up is now down. What was once left is now right, and vice versa for both. But that arrogance remains, and that narcissism has remained. And we actually played a clip last week, and I thought when we did last week, we're going to wind up having to talk about this again. There are groups on the fringe of this society who think that they are smarter than everybody else. They think, there's a better word than smarter. They think they're better than everybody else. There are groups who want to be like that group, who think that they can act like that group, and they also think that they're better than everybody else. Yet increasingly, they are becoming more and more fringe, okay? They don't hold not only mainstream, but moderate views. After the election, because they do have very strong conviction, and this is the problem people have with this word, using this word incorrectly. Moderate, number one, there are two real big problems with it. Moderate, it means that it's a generic word that is being used when you really have somebody who doesn't have any core convictions, and they are usually using it as a justification to just be crooked, right? I'm going to support this even though I say I'm a liberal. I'm going to support this even though I say I'm a conservative. The real reason you're supporting it is not because you're a moderate, like John McCain is a great example of this. It's because you're crooked. The real estate dealings, the real reason John McCain did not vote for the Reagan tax cuts, he didn't give a shit about the deficit, folks. That's not why he didn't vote for it. So they use this word to mask, all right, Obamacare, another great example of his votes. He was already bought and paid for by Big Pharma, and he hated Donald Trump. But they use that word to mask something else that's going on, all right? And they don't hold, their real views are not mainstream. And after the election in 24, we started to talk a lot more about how it's like the Overton window, how it's shifted over time. What was once considered kind of radical and harsh views on immigration is now mainstream. The truth is, if you listen to Lydia Syed, who's been studying this from Gallup for years before she went crazy too, Americans have for a very long time been saying it's not only illegal immigration, it's all immigration. We have major problems here, and we cannot keep taking people at this rate. We have our own issues. I would like reduced levels across the board, legal and illegal. Right? But it's been chipping away and getting growing. And now that is the mainstream position. Liberals, they want you to think that transgenderism is a civil rights thing, is an issue that falls under civil rights. This is a civil rights struggle of our time. The country believes it's a mental health issue. It is not a civil rights issue. And despite the fact that they have made great gains with things like gay marriage and even abortion, things are backfiring, but they never got there with transgenderism. All right. It was never okay, especially with the kids, what the movement is doing with the kids. That was never all right. Yet, if you watch the media, they're going to act as if that is the common mainstream position. There's a reason why they're doing that. And that falls into what we're going to talk about today. Before we get into any of the technical stuff, people don't like admitting that they have been duped. It's human nature. In politics, it's worse Because, of course, most people do have political views and they want to believe the lie. They want to believe it. It doesn't matter if later on that lie gets proven to be false. They are much more susceptible and they want to believe it. You couple this and kind of, not even couple, but compound this with Jack Snyder being right that America is a myth believing society. It's very easy because of our idealism to pump bull on us. And despite the fact that we're the nation of rugged individualism and free thought, we are rather susceptible to these myths. All right. And especially in the political world, they take advantage of that human nature and it is amplified. But it is all human nature. Don't get me wrong. Some people are great. Again, I'm speaking in generalities. Some people are great. And they're like, you know what? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I learned, I'm moving on. Those people are an exception. Most people don't like it. It's hard. It's easier to believe the lie. It's hard to admit to yourself, to rationalize in your mind that you have been deceived. I have been now, God, it's 2025, for almost a decade, studying how people make decisions and why they make these decisions in a professional um, capacity. So we've lost and we've won, but we've lost a lot of cases because of these things. And people filter what they see and the evidence they process and the stories they hear through the lenses of those belief systems that they have. And if you're a smart prosecutor, even if you're being deceptive, if you're a smart prosecutor, you want to recognize that, for instance, and you want to take advantage of it. It's that simple. Defense attorney wants to do the same thing. However, hopefully it's in pursuit of the just verdict. In politics, the entity that does that the most, takes advantage, is what we call collectively the Democratic Party. It's hard to separate them. They have the same goal and they have the same agenda. And I'm talking about a mixture or a hybrid, an alliance between the media and one of the two major political parties in this country, that being the Democratic Party. They cannot be separated from corporate big media. And then that alliance is funded by K Street and driven by K Street. Folks, when you're watching MSNBC or CNN, right? And when you are looking at who is funding congressional campaigns and senatorial campaigns, you will see great overlap between the commercials that are running and those that are funding those campaigns. Big Pharma, Wall Street, right? All represented by K Street. They have their own Congress up the road. And they make sure the Congress that you think is there to do your bidding actually does theirs. And that's the system we have. They are the single biggest exploiters of these flaws to human nature that we have in our society. There is a name for this phenomena, and it's been a while since we talked about it. But I'm going to show a clip first of my buddy Charlie sitting down with Bill Maher before we get into it, because there are two things that I really want to show you. It's already 2:24. There's a lot to cover. But what I want you to know before I start running this clip is it doesn't matter if you present them with evidence. It is a real phenomena. There are some people who are worse at this than others. And despite that old book, The Republican Mind, it is the liberal mind that very clearly and conclusively cannot accept when they have been duped. I could go over and over and over a bunch of them. Let's do a few now. Hands up, don't shoot. Total bullshit. Michael Brown never had his hands up, and he never said don't shoot. The only time Michael Brown put his hands up above his waist area was to assault Officer Darren Wilson and attempt to remove his firearm and kill a police officer. Black African American witnesses testified to the grand jury that that is what happened. Yet, today, to this very day, and the worst offenders are white liberals, white educated liberals, especially women. But I'm sorry, I think there are just more of them. Honestly, and I am arguing this. I actually think white men, educated liberal men, are probably the biggest offenders of this. But there are more women, so we focus on them more. We don't know yet. Honestly, we don't know. I'm just saying, like, when it depends on the issue with things like abortion, things like that, it's actually men. It is. But that could be because of something maternal that's going on. And maybe women just don't even have any control of that. But when it comes to stuff like this, um, white liberals have an enormous amount of white guilt. And they will tell you till this very day that Michael Brown put his hands up and said, "Don't shoot." It's, of course, completely false. During COVID, the Gallup study, which backed up everything that we had published, liberals, white educated liberals who think they're smarter than everybody else, were the most likely to incorrectly answer things about COVID, such as mortality rates, who is getting infected at higher rates, vaccinated or unvaccinated, those who had and were not vaccinated, with natural immunity, in other words, hospitalization rates. I mean, on and on and on. They think they're smarter than they are because they are watching. And it's not because they're inherently stupid. That's not what's going on here. It's because they are the most, well, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but it's who they're watching. It's the lies they are being told and their inability to acknowledge that they are being lied to, not wanting to be lied to anymore. It's really that simple, because there's another phenomenon that greatly influences what is happening here, and we're going to get into it. I just don't want to get too far ahead. Let's just name a couple of others. The very fine people hoax. You can put a transcript in front of a white liberal, educated white liberal, especially if they're wealthy. You could put a transcript of what Donald Trump said at that day, at that press conference, and show them that he did not say that white supremacists were very fine people. They won't care. They will continue to believe the lie. You can tell the jury forewoman in the Kyle Rittenhouse case to watch the video over and over and over. And oh, by the way, he did not illegally smuggle that weapon across state lines. And it only changes when the other 11 people on the jury exhaust her and she quits, but she never fully will agree with it. And she will never fully acknowledge that she was in fact lied to by the media about the facts surrounding the Kyle Rittenhouse case. She will never fully admit that the FBI in fact did withhold exculpatory video evidence for over a 6-month period, even though it was under discovery. You could show her the video. It will not matter. You can tell the white educated liberal, especially an urban one, but it doesn't matter. There are more that are worse than others, but this is the characterization we're talking about. You can tell them over and over again that the Russia collusion hoax was fake. You could show them evidence until the cows come home. You could show them text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. You could show them in the Mueller report where it said, despite repeated attempts, nobody in Trump's campaign colluded with the Russians in any of their schemes to influence or steal the 2016 presidential election. It won't matter. The Washington Post story about hacking the power grid, they still believe it. It won't matter. I can go on and on. Jussie Smollett. These are also, I'm not pulling these things out of a hat. These are all things that we have studied. And by the way, one of which was huge, was directly for the case we were involved in. It did not matter. They look at the video. They're staring at the video. They're looking at it. It's not processing. He shot them in cold blood and he hunted down unarmed protesters. No, 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 ma'am. Watch the video. Here we go. Here's Kyle on the ground. Here they are trying to take his weapon away. If he got that weapon under the law, Kyle could easily perceive that his life is in danger. Here he goes. He's about to take action in defense of his life. That's self-defense under the law. No, he shouldn't have been there. He hunted those black protesters down. They can't grasp it, folks. I'm telling you, it's a short circuit somewhere. It's like AI programmed, and that program cannot be altered or changed. It must operate within the parameters. Do not go out of these parameters in this array that I have defined for you, but you can be AI in these parameters. Outside of those parameters, and you break, and your mind short circuits. That's it. It's scary, but it is a true thing. It's a real thing. And there's a name for it. Okay? And there's more. I believe when it comes to politics, there's more to it. But the base is already something that's well known in the industry. It is called Illusory Truth Effect. Okay? What is the Illusory Truth Effect? As soon as I take a swig of my water and a puff of my vapor, I will tell you, and then we will read a story. Not a story, excuse me, a study. Just the abstract and the conclusion. Can't stay on it for long, but we will read it after the break. We're going to do this before the break. We'll read it, and you will see why the media is the most negative influence in our society. Period. It's not even close. I mean, this is just dealing with illusory truth effect. Think about the other things that we have discussed over and over again that is a negative influence, proving a negative influence that corporate media has on our society. Because, of course, they're doing this on purpose. They're lying on purpose. And I'm going to show you why they do it, and they know it. Just like they know they're the contagion when it comes to mass shootings, especially of little children. They don't care. Okay. This is actually not the best definition of it, but it's going to give you a little bit of an insight into the future. In sum, the illusory truth effect is the phenomena or the tendency, all right, for you to believe something, a narrative, a so-called fact, a presumed fact, despite the fact that you are presented with evidence to the contrary, okay? The word here that's in the sentence that's the operative word is repeatedly. All right, repeated frequency. All right, the illusory truth effect is the tendency for any statement that is repeated, whether it is factually true or not, whether it is even plausible or not, to acquire the ring of truth. Studies show, which we're going to read in a second, that repetition increases the perception of validity, even when people start out knowing that the information is false, or when the source of the information is known to be suspect. So when people say, nobody believes MSNBC anymore, everyone knows they're bull. Nobody believes CNN, everyone knows. The problem is, this is something, I don't want to say it's a flaw. This is a problem that is inherent to us. And it is, I'm telling you, compounded in this political space, because you add to this very real phenomena that human beings want to believe certain things. We want our views confirmed. We have confirmation biases. We have there are many kinds, by the way, but we have social biases. We want things to be the way that they're supposed to be, as defined by our neat little social circles and the little worlds that we carve out, our little corners. We have a set of facts. We have fact patterns, and we want the world and events in the world and things that happen and facts around people. We want them to make sense with those little worlds. So we want to believe things we know to be incorrect. You're supposed to be looking at this as the media is giving people permission to believe lies. And often they're very dangerous lies. The Russia collusion hoax was a republic-ending lie. You're accusing the duly elected president of being a traitor, colluding with a foreign entity, which, by the way, colluding was a word that they stole. Colluding was a word that had just months before been used to characterize the relationship between the media and the Democratic Party in the wake of the DNC leaks and the Hillary Clinton leaks that were put out by WikiLeaks. Alternative media, and even some that were penetrated into the corporate space, like Fox and others, use the word collusion and colluded to characterize what those leaks were revealing. A collusion, a partnership between the media and the Democratic Party to rig elections, to rig information, to distort information, to gain power. All right. So, very, very big part of this, again, is the repetition factor. Now, imagine, even though they're saying this is real, this is a very real phenomenon, even when the source has is suspect. What about if that source is presented or has the veneer of credibility? The Washington Post, the old gray lady, right? The ever credible New York Times. They would not lie to us. The Wall Street Journal, they would never publish something so fake and so harmful. No way. It has to be true because the New York Times is publishing it. If you're from where I'm from, if you're from anywhere in the tri-state area, you know those upper middle class and above social circles, how they view the Wall Street Journal, how they view the New York Times, how they view cable news. There's no way that they're going to lie to them about something so serious. This is what this is what society's winners digest for information. I knew a liberal handyman who subscribed to all of them in Florida because that is what his worldview told him was the credible source of information in the society. It didn't matter, Ed, I'm talking about you. It didn't matter how many times I would have to correct Ed about stuff. He didn't care. He heard it in the New York Times. He saw it on CNN. Andrew Gillum up by 12 in CNN. Didn't matter how many times I told Andrew Gillum that not only is Andrew Gillum not up over 12 points, Rick Scott's going to beat Bill Nelson, and that's probably going to drag Ron DeSantis over the finish line. My son's upper middle class tennis instructor. I will give it to him, at least after the election. He had the manhood to say you were right, but he went right back to believing CNN and everything he saw on CNN. The operative word here, again, repeated frequency. And they know that. And as soon as we get done with this quick read, I will actually go back into, we're going to read a study and we'll talk about this because it's important for you to understand how they do it, why they do it, what's wrong with us. There is. It's something that if we don't recognize about ourselves, we're all subject to. It's a pitfall in our minds. And if we don't acknowledge it and be aware of it, we'll fall into it too. It's why I have certain things with my methodology. They're safeguards. I'm a human being. Some pollsters are just better than others, but I'm a human being. I could still fall prey to the same kinds of biases. Maybe I see something and I want to believe it. You need safeguards. You must be aware of your own bias. There's nothing in my industry. There's nothing more dangerous than a guy or a girl, a pollster who pretends or tries to give out the veneer of impartiality. You aren't an impartial source. You are a human being and you have your own views, you have your own desires, you have your own preferences for who wins or loses an election. If you can't start at a place where you acknowledge that and you act accordingly and you put in safeguards that protect you against yourself, you're never going to be a good pollster. You may end up overstating the same party that you just so happen to want to win over and over and over and over and over and over, right? Helps to explain some of this, doesn't it? Because, of course, it takes multiple forms. They want to believe it. They want to believe the lie. It's easier to believe the lie. Plus, it confirms your worldview. All right? So even people who go on and say, no, I'm an honest broker. I'm an honest broker. Are you really if you're not being honest with yourself? All right, let's take a break. We'll come back in a second. Oh, man, I got myself a nice little care package. I hope you guys have tried them out because they are absolutely awesome. Have you ever drank a cup of coffee that makes you feel younger? 1775's Rejuvenate Coffee is a bold dark roast that's infused with CAAKG. All right. And it's actually, pronounced just like that. CAAKG. All right. The same compound that's studied to reverse biological age by up to 8 years. It fuels your cells, sharpens your mind, and supports long term strength, all without popping a cabinet full of supplements or drinking swamp water in a bottle. This isn't lab junk, no mystery blends, just real single origin, small batch coffee roasted weekly with one powerful proven ingredient. And here's the best part. When you buy from 1775 Coffee, you're backing free speech, you're backing freedom of choice, and a company that backs the same creators and values that you do and you have. No corporate overlords. It's just great product made for people who still believe in something real. It's at 1775coffee.com, which of course is in the description below. Grab their anti-aging longevity roast and use the code TPP, like the People's Pundit, for 15% off at checkout. Feel sharper, stronger, younger, and know you're fueling the companies that actually give a damn about your health and your freedoms. Look, I love coffee. I'm a coffee lover. If you are too, then why not? Right? Why not? It's actually one of my few vices remaining. Lord knows I started with a lot of them. Why not try to spin it into a positive thing? Right? Okay. Should I play this first? I think I want to play this clip first before we talk about this study. But I think I want to show you the study first, and then I think I want to show you the clip. Let's do that. Okay. It's probably too small for you to see, so I'm going to go ahead and make it bigger. Cognitive research, principles and implications, the effects of repetition frequency on the illusory truth effect. You ever wonder why the media repeats the same lies over and over again, even after they've been proven to be lies? How long? I'm going to show my age here, but forget about Michael Brown, Duke lacrosse. How many days did Megyn Kelly sit on Fox? A week? 9 days? Reporting what they reported about the Tawana Brawley. I want to say the accusations and none of this adding up. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, of course, there's a black girl who basically went out and got drunk and likely gangbanged, right? Out of bad decision making. Came back and blamed a bunch of white boys. It's that simple. Reverend Al Sharpton got involved and she said she was raped and drugged and gang raped and drugged, blah, right? It was all bullshit. Megyn Kelly punched a hole through her story. I want to say within the first 48 hours. I remember it was quick. Even on her own network, where she was popping in and giving updates, whatever you want to call them, news break updates, where she was very clearly on to it. She knew how this was going to end. In between those updates, they would push the false information. To what end? is obviously, the question, but I think we all know what it is. It's a political agenda. The end is a political end. How long was it totally clear that the Russia collusion hoax was fake, and yet they kept going? Actually, what most people in America don't know is that everyone knew the Russia collusion hoax was fake when they were pushing it. When Robert Mueller was appointed as a special prosecutor, when the Senate Intelligence Committee, remember old Richard Burr, Mr. Credibility himself. This is the credible investigation because, of course, the one in the House, led by Devin Nunes at the time, a national treasure, led by Devin Nunes at the time, was punching holes in it left and right. So the Senate one was characterized as the credible investigation. Richard Burr turned out to be a crook and an inside trader, and Mr. Wolf went to jail for leaking classified information to some honey badger at the New York Times he was hoping to nail. Lifelong careers down the drain, just to bring you this fake story on repeat on cable and network news 24/7, day in and day out, week in and week out, over and over, over and over, over and over, over and over. Because, of course, they know it's a lie. They are on repeat intentionally because they are trying to plant the illusory truth effect in mass into minds all over the country so that those minds can then glitch out at the ballot box and vote for the party that they want to win. This is not some big conspiracy. Everybody knows this. And guess what? It's called messaging. It just so happens that they are dishonest and they are with a microphone, a megaphone, a bullhorn that nobody else has. So the damage they're doing is on a scale that really we cannot compare to anything else. So when we ask, what is the most negative or divisive force in U.S. political society? The answer, of course, can only be corporate big media. These are healthy, or what is considered by the clinical arena to be healthy minds who are falling for this. What happens when that mind is not healthy? I'll tell you. Steve Scalise and 4 others being shot while they practice for a charity baseball game with their colleagues in Congress. A nutcase Hillary Clinton supporter, Bernie Sanders supporter, previous to that in the primary, believed every word he heard on Rachel Maddow. Trump was a traitor. Trump was a Russian asset. And you know what? You know who's really to blame here? Republicans. They're his enablers. They're the traitors' enablers. It didn't matter how much evidence he saw a healthy mind as having a problem processing the evidence. So he decided nothing really is going to change or be done. We're not safe until we kill the enablers. So that's what he set out to do. We need any more examples? Rand Paul can't even mow his front lawn without the illusory truth effect causing him multiple broken ribs by his nutcase neighbor who comes flying out of his house, beat the shit out of him over some bullshit he saw on CNN. Of course, the assassin, the would-be assassin, everything in his manifesto is right off of CNN. Right off of it. The effects of repetition frequency on the illusory truth effect. Repeated information is often perceived as more truthful than new information. Isn't that problematic then? If there's exculpatory evidence that comes out and is clear after the disinformation op has begun. In other words, you know the old adage, where do you go to get your reputation back? The academic research suggests nowhere. There's nowhere you can go. Because fluency and truth are frequently correlated in the real world. People learn to use processing fluency as a marker for truthfulness. So, if you hear Mr. Garcia is a Maryland man and an American citizen over and over and over and over and over and over and over on X, on network news, on cable news, on social media platforms other than X, in the New York Times, in the Washington Post, in some worker's mouth, right? If you hear it, and of course, the source of that information doesn't even need to be credible, but at this point with this, they do have the veneer of credibility, then obviously whatever comes after is not really gonna matter. It's the time. It's what Nancy called Nancy Pelosi. Ooh, what did she call it again? The something smear. The something smear. She has a name for this, Nancy Pelosi. When you attack somebody, when you're out to smear someone, it doesn't really matter what comes later. Harry Reid, he expressed the same thing. They know this. They're consciously doing it, is my point. Harry Reid, it doesn't really matter whether or not Mitt Romney's a tax cheat, right? All that matters is that we called him a tax cheat for a week or two, and people will forever believe it. The job is done. Although the illusory truth effect is a robust phenomenon, almost all studies examining it have used 3 or fewer repetitions. In experiment 1, we showed participation trivia statements up to 9 times, and in experiment 2, statements were shown up to 27 times. I can tell you from what we have done in voir dire research, Barnes and I haven't taken count, but there are often in cases the scenario, I'll tell you how we do it. I'll give you at least some of how we do it. We present them if they are a juror that knows, or a juror, well, there it's a mock, of course, but if they are someone who knows, because we're dealing with politically known cases, they're high profile political cases. So we're intentionally seeing how the effects of coverage have impacted this juror's belief. So we'll take jurors specifically of interest to us, as those who do know and end up on the jury. I mean, they're all of interest to us, but this is a more relevant one, of course, for the conversation we're having. We will drip them exculpatory evidence after presenting the overall scope, the scenario that they know from what they may or may not have heard in the public sphere. And we'll get that as a baseline, and then we will begin to drip them with evidence one after the other, and ask them if at any point this will change their verdict. This is how we know what argument is more powerful than another argument. And I can tell you, no matter what we showed, people in the District of Columbia, for instance, there was almost nothing that was going to be able to change their minds that this was, in fact, an insurrection. These are violent insurrectionists, and they should be put away for the rest of their natural lives. That's what the liberal mind in the District of Columbia believed. In the Rittenhouse case, like I said, it's another great example. The Covington case, also with video. Now, this can happen on both sides. I'm not afraid to tell you that we were also involved in the Milwaukee County Jail. Civil rights violations, multiple. And to an authoritarian, whether right or on the right or the left, whether they consider themselves or identify as being a Republican or a Democrat, a person who falls into the red personality category and is an authoritarian. In other words, they speak the language of control. They are not overly analytical, even though they may have some blue in them. Most of us do have secondary color characteristics, personality traits, characteristics, but especially those reds, of which I am one, by the way. I'm not an authoritarian, and it overlaps. You can have overlaps between the kinds of people, belief systems, and personality traits. There's almost infinite overlap. But those are basically the worst when it comes to somebody, for instance, who maybe you have a client who is alleging a civil rights violation in a county jail, of which I will tell you there were many, including when a lot of people's favorite sheriff, Milwaukee County Sheriff, ran it. Nice guy. I've met him. Certainly a nice dude. But I've watched some horrible things on video go down in his jail. You can stick a video from inside the jail in front of a red authoritarian and show them the police kicking the shit out of inmates for no good reason. And they will refuse to believe that those police did not act without some kind of justification. It's weird. And we can show them multiple instances and it still won't change their mind. Let's see what they say here. Later, participants rated the truthfulness of the previously seen statements and of new statements. In both experiments, we found that perceived truthfulness increased as the number of repetitions increased. However, these truth ratings increase were logarithmic in shape. The largest increase in perceived truth came from encountering a statement for the second time. And beyond this, there were incrementally smaller increases in perceived truth for each additional repetition. In other words, you see something once, that's one thing, and it sends you in one direction. When you see it again, or the reinforcement of the smear, as it is in the political world, when you're smearing somebody, as Nancy knows full well, the initial reinforcement of that smear or of that disinformation campaign, okay? And sometimes I'm not referring to they saw it on CNN, then they again read about it in the New York Times. Often what can be, there can be tiers. We found there are tiers of this. Another element to the story that then later confirms, and this is why circular reporting is so dangerous. If you don't know what it is, it's when different sources are reporting the same set of facts or stories or truth, right? Information, right? And they are, at least if not claiming outright, but giving the appearance that they are really corroborating that set of facts, even though their source is the same. So the Steele dossier, for instance, is filled with circular reporting, and then the reporting on the Steele dossier, the facts that were in it, which turned out not to be facts at all, nothing is verified, it was all trash. Because the media was reporting on these things that were in the Steele documents separately and not telling people that in fact it is the same source that you read about in the New York Post or the Washington Post or the New York Times or you saw on MSNBC. They were all acting as if their separate reporting was corroborating, when in fact it really is just circular reporting. In the intel space, this is a big no-go. It is a clear it's a cardinal sin. A cardinal sin. Because, of course, you really do want real info. When you're and you're seeking real intelligence and you want good information, circular reporting is a cardinal sin when you're something like convince a judge to give you a FISA warrant. It is a major no-no. It used to be. During the Bush years, you could not do that. Or at least supposedly. Obama years was like, open the floodgates on corruption, let it all in. And then we ended up with, Crossfire Hurricane, which then led to the bullshit Russia collusion hoax. But what they're saying here is that initial exposure starts the ball rolling. And that second exposure, whatever form it may take, I would argue can be different. But that second exposure results in increased believability in its truthfulness at a rate that you will not see again, even though repeated exposures incrementally increase its believability. Its believability, right? So it gets more true with more exposure, but that big jump, that solidification in the human mind that it is true will happen after the second exposure, okay? Does that make sense to all of you? I know we're getting a little bit academic here, but I hope it's making sense to you guys because this is so very important. Because as you can see with the statement, the significant statement, all right? The first statement is the big thing here. And let me just finish. These findings add to our theoretical understanding of the illusory truth effect and have applications for advertising, politics, and the propagation of fake news. And the significant statement starts out, Repetition can affect beliefs about truth. People tend to perceive claims as truer if they have been exposed to them before. This is known as the Illusory Truth Effect, and it can help explain why advertisements and propaganda work, and also why people believe fake news to be true. Although a larger number of studies have shown that the illusory truth effect occurs, very little research is used more than 3 repetitions. However, in the real world, claims are often encountered at much higher repetition rates. And of course, in the political world, this is exceptionally true. In the advertisement world, it's also exceptionally true. If you see over and over again the same big pharma ad, folks, about Ozempic, and it's this miracle weight loss. Ozempic, right? And you're just going to see it over and over and over again. It doesn't matter what comes at the end of that advertisement, which of course is what? Ozempic is a super safe treatment and it's going to help you lose. And Ozempic, and you're going to lose all this weight and your life's going to get back to normal. Guys, you're going to be able to nail your wife again, right? And then all of a sudden at the end of the advertisement, you hear Ozempic can cause all sorts of, your kidney will fall out. You may get stage 4 cancer within 3 months. And you know what? You could be gay. And all of that comes after you've already been reinforced with all this wonderful bullshit. They're doing it on purpose. And it's no different in the political world. And in fact, I'd argue it's even worse. Okay? All right. Let's play this clip. And I was going to hit the Kornacki clip again. So you can maybe, because I feel like in America, we're not understanding each other. And it leads to like, not like, a dislike of the other. Right? And I don't want to say it's not their fault. But in some cases, it honestly may not be their fault. I don't know. To me, I'm not sure that's as relevant because at this point, like, your ignorance is a threat to my liberty. So while I'm interested, it's not the predominant or the primary focus for me, But let me play, because even so-called intelligent people, you cannot take away, you may not agree with everything he says, but you cannot take away that somebody like Bill Maher is a smart guy. All right? I don't think Jon Stewart is as smart as people think he is, although I happen to like Jon Stewart. John, you remember the VA benefits thing? You were actually on the good side. Jon Stewart came out. We were trying to get things about the Community Care Act done, and he was a very nice guy. But he's falling prey to it. Bill Maher falls prey to this all the time. And he's reasonable. And he's one of the few. Actually, Bill Maher is one of the few who can break out of the illusory truth effect, whereas most people cannot. That's why this idea like Republicans are going to win this group, let's say overly educated, affluent white suburban women, sure you will. The minute you support unfettered abortion, you support child mutilation in the name of a civil rights issue. White guilt. You have white guilt. Maybe you want to pay a little reparations. These women are not voting on tax cuts and foreign policy. They're voting on the argument, or for the argument that helps them make sense of their world. And their world is filled with bullshit. But they're trying to make sense of it. They want to be like all of the rest of us, reinforced and confirmed. And that's what a party is doing in order to hold and maintain power. They know it. All right, let's play this clip. Bill is sitting with my buddy Charlie, who also, we can't argue, is an intelligent person. They're talking about the Garcia case. And Charlie, I'm going to let it play for a little bit, maybe upwards of like 2 minutes. Charlie goes over some basic facts of the case. Basic facts that somehow are still in dispute in the liberal mind. Or no, they're not. They believe the wrong set of facts. Excuse me. He's an American. All right? He was just ripped out. Even Maher himself will start. But you will be able to see that Maher can recognize when he has been duped. And it's rare. It's rare. It's hard. So I applaud him for it. But here you're going to hear, you're going to see the product and hear the product of the media's exploitation of the illusory truth effect and the Democratic Party's exploitation of it. You're going to hear it in real time in this interview. All right.
They didn't vote for.
They did vote for mass deportations.
People without any. I mean,
so you mean that Maryland case is what you're talking about, right?
The guy who they're trying, who they said,
MS-13 member.
Well, there's no evidence that he's. They did not present evidence. I mean, I don't really want to get into the weeds on this one because I got to do it on my show Friday. But
Somebody doesn't know. Let's be real.
But the Supreme Court, I guess we have to get into the weeds.
There's
It's
even new
it's
evidence in the last couple of hours that
There
I
was.
don't. You lead the conversation. You tell me how deep you want to go on it.
None.
Okay.
I mean, but I hope that if it comes to
Why none? Right? Again, remember, we want this to be easy on our brains. We do. We don't like to be confronted with it. We don't. None of us. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, whether you're a conservative, whether you're a liberal, whether you're a populist, whether you're a corporatist. None of us like to be confronted with it. That's what Bill Maher was doing right there. He was avoiding the moment. It's almost like an intellectual epiphany when you have to confront the reality that you believed something that is not true. It's easier to just avoid it and move on, even if you know you're making false statements about it. All right?
light, let me button it up this way. I hope that if it does come to light that there really is no evidence that this guy was a gang member, that he got swept up, which is very understandable, that when you do a sweep, when you're doing big things, yes, nothing is going to go perfect. But if it does come to light, I would hope that some Republicans have the spine to say, yeah, that's not right. This guy should not be there. I mean, the Bill of Rights, it's pretty clear that you can't just disappear people without any sort of trial.
Well, but sorry to interrupt.
And deportation is not the same thing as sending someone to a prison.
But you are allowed to deport under the Alien Enemies Act.
Correct.
Someone who is part of a recognized terrorist organization, which MS-13 is pretty close to a terrorist organization.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you're bending all these words.
And he's not an American citizen. We got to acknowledge that.
No, absolutely
right?
not.
So that's important.
Now,
but he wasn't here illegally either.
No, he was.
Wait.
Illegally.
Yeah.
Wait. Well, there it is. That is Bill Maher being Bill Maher, which again is worth applauding. Just a week before this, and this was taped days ago, a week before this, he did believe that he was an American citizen. Everyone, when this tape is being taped, everyone on his side of the aisle is still believing that he's an American citizen. He's a Maryland man who was ripped out of his home and basically sent to a foreign country. So listen to this part carefully, because this is where most people can't do it. Jessica Tarlov couldn't do it on Fox. She posted a clip, folks, of her standing her ground and maintaining that this guy's never was associated with MS-13, is a Maryland man, an American citizen. Okay? That's the norm, is my point. But here is Bill Maher trying to come to grips with it. He knows it now, but he still can't accept. What does that mean? No, he wasn't here illegally. Yes, he was. He was here illegally. This is not the fact in dispute. He's little by little being exposed to information that is correcting false information he knew. And I'm showing you this because even as somebody who can do it, you can see his mind still trying to resist that he's been duped.
Maryland man. As long as we're not talking about two different cases.
We're talking about Garcia.
Yes,
yeah.
He was an illegal immigrant to the country.
I thought he was waiting for asylum.
Well, you could be illegal waiting for asylum.
I see. So so they could deport him. That's right.
Yes.
But we never did it, but to a prison.
It's an edge case. I acknowledge it's on the edge.
Okay, good.
No, but the edge is, so there's 3 ways you can deport people. It could be the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. It can be
used only 3 times.
That's fine, but hey, look, and you quote the First Amendment all the time. That's from 1787, right? So
okay, so the Logan Act, which was used to spy on Michael Flynn, justify the spying on Michael Flynn and persecution, later persecution and prosecution of Michael Flynn, was never used. It was Joe Biden's idea. We can see it in the minutes of a White House meeting with Barack Obama, who then scribbled in his own handwriting what a great idea it was to use the Logan Act that Joe Biden had brought up, even though the Logan Act, of course, was not even used ever for that. It was an old act, and that is an appropriate act to say, look, that's old, ancient, never used, because it was created in a day when we didn't have mass information, or the quickness of information is not, of course, anywhere near what it is today, or what it even was 50 years ago. This is when you had to get on a freaking boat and sail across the pond to make sure that somebody was not impersonating an ambassador, for instance, right? So in France, is that really John Adams, or is that some guy who's pretending to be the ambassador John Adams trying to get money for the Continental Army, right? That's what that was about. The Logan Act was adopted in response to that later on. Now it was not used to persecute or prosecute somebody who's a member of a duly elected president's transition team, who's speaking, in the capacity of what his role is going to be when the transition is over as the national security advisor to the Russian ambassador about public policy. Yet they did it, right? So again, I mean, it's just how our minds it's okay for Bill Maher then, because Bill Maher is his interest is in the end game of why they did that. This is not in his interest now, because of course this is not something he wants to believe, right? So our desire to want to believe something can make us interpret the facts very differently, right? So you can't separate this idea. It's an old thing. Okay, you just cited the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is also very old. The Logan Act was misused. That was old, but you didn't care. We want to believe it. So we rationalize and we justify things. It's the same thing with the illusory truth effect. You may be confronted with information that what you believed was untrue, but you want to rationalize it in a way where you can still believe it.
So old things are important. No, I'm just saying, just because
that's been used. That's been used more than 3 times.
Fair enough, but just because things are old doesn't mean. And I'm not saying you're using that talking point, but some people are trying to invalidate it just because it's old. Well, it's also expedited release.
They're trying to invalidate it because it doesn't really apply to this. That it's stretching.
I mean, how is MS-13 not a terrorist organization?
Yeah, I mean, you can make
or
that.
Tren de Aragua. I mean, organized
because terrorism really is a political movement. It means terrorizing the civilian population to achieve a political goal.
They didn't do that in Loudoun County, right? I mean, that's debatable, and that's a legitimate intellectual discussion. But again, what I would argue his real problem is here is that he is making remember these old inaccurate historical analogies that we talked about so much before. He's making one now. No problem with the Logan Act use to be used against Michael Flynn, right? So it's how we justify things, to believe things that were not true. So why am I even bringing this up? Because that's what he's doing when being confronted with information that contradicts what he believed to be factual, and it's not factual. And he's got no Charlies in front of him right now. This is a different kind of forum, and there's nowhere to run on this program, right? You're in 2 chairs, you're drinking a scotch, and by the way, Bill, I'll come on. Damn, man, what kind of scotch you got there? I'll suck up the ulcer with that one, brother. And that cigar, I don't treat myself often, but I'll sit down in the chair and talk with you. Shit, pass the Johnny Walker Black. Anyway, this is what, is a different form, whereas like on a news program, when you are looking at an anchor talking to their guests, it's a very short, trust me, I do them all the time. You don't have a whole lot of time to confront someone about misinformation or something they say that's not true, and they can pivot, and they can squeal their way out of it, squirm their way out of it. Bill can't squirm his way out here. Either something he says is true or it is not. and Charlie's in a position, they're in a setting, how can I put it? I mean, that's a forum, a setting that doesn't allow him to do that. So we get to watch his mind here, real time, try to process. Real time. Get it? See what I did there? I didn't even mean to do that. Pun not intended. We're trying to watch his mind process that he believed something that was incorrect. Okay? All right. Almost over.
These guys just want to grab your locket. You know, this is...
It's a little more than that.
A lot more than that. Look.
They just want to grab your locket. It's a lot more than that. You're right. It's a lot more than that. It doesn't make sense, does it? It really doesn't make sense. But again, we're not over here picking on Bill Maher. What he should get accolade for is, man, I'll give him accolades for it. He can, given time, process stuff and change his mind. And that's something that many of us cannot do. All right. All right. I hope this gave you some kind of an insight today. I know it was kind of academic today, but I felt like it really needed to be explored or introduced, right? As like a primer. And then we're going to be talking about it a lot more, because I'll throw it at you here and there when I try to help you understand how, like, a poll question comes back and it's like, well, look, guys, I mean, who fueled this result? Who was which groups were the driving factor behind this result? Okay. Where are they getting their information, and what are their belief systems? It is not uncommon for a majority opinion to come back being the ill-informed or wrong opinion, because they were presented with incorrect information. All right. And public opinion doesn't change that quickly on these things, because most people are not like Bill Maher, and many don't have the capacity at all to change their mind. They would rather believe the lie. If you're a Trump supporter out there, I'm sure you thought throughout this show of multiple examples of people that that to this day probably still believe that Michael Brown had his hands up and said, "Don't you?" People to this day who still believe Donald Trump said that white supremacists were very fine people. Of course, that is not true. Neither of those are true. Same. We can go on and on with the other issues, or high national focus issues that we discussed earlier. The Russia hoax, the Rittenhouse case, right? All right. So I hope that gave you some kind of an insight. I really do. It's 3/17 on a Monday, the day after Easter Sunday. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them, and share them far and wide. Check out 1775 Coffee if you haven't before. If you are a dark roast person, if you like bolder coffee, that's definitely the coffee to go to. Jam and Bean is great with mediums, but I'm a variety guy, even though I got to watch how much coffee I take. I'm a 1 cup if I'm lucky a day, and it's a 4 to 6 ounce cup. It's my life now. It is what it is. So, of course, don't forget, their links are in the description. Go check them out. Support them. They support us. But ultimately, it is now April 21st. The public polling project is quarterly. Got to get this thing done. So if you can help fund it, share it far and wide. I've noticed that you guys definitely are doing your best to share it. I'm just trying to dial up. I'm just trying to crank up the dial here, because we're running out of time. All right. So do what you can with it, and we'll see how we fare in about a week or so. We can get this out. Okay. With that in mind, I'm going to leave you to it, folks. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, of course. And I think we will be able to squeeze something in tomorrow. All right. I would like to. And I think we're going to do that. Okay. Sign up for locals. That is definitely the best place to follow us, or become a member on YouTube so you don't miss any of those pop-in videos. Often they are for local supporters, and I will do my best always to put them on the basics or higher membership thing on YouTube. All right. So if you are on YouTube and you want to move over to locals, search the community section. That code still works. And basically what it is attempting to do is, if you pay monthly for YouTube membership, but you want to come over to locals, it'll knock that month that you paid off on YouTube so you can come on and join locals. All right. It's still there. I should probably refresh it and put it up higher on the community thing. But that code still works. So go grab it, check it out, and come on over to locals. All right. With that, I'm out like trout on a fishing route, folks. I will see you tomorrow. As always, deuces, 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 deuces. That's the background, silly. You'll get it. There it is. I did that to you. I put it in the other one too. My bad. I'll leave your buttons alone. Later. Gotta follow the Pope then. Biggie.